After Kondo's arrival, the village of Korra became divided, not only in beliefs but in actions. Two families, once the most respected in the village, now found themselves on opposite sides of a growing divide. The Kori family, known for their wise farming and care for the land, took a stand against the greed that Kondo preached. Led by Elder Nori Kori, the Kori family believed that nature was sacred, and the best way to live was in harmony with the land. They spoke at village meetings, asking everyone to slow down, not let their desires take over, and not ignore the dangers of overusing the earth's resources. But not everyone agreed. The loudest supporter of Kondo's ideas was Jonzo, the young heir to the Motsuo family. The Motsuo family had always been traders, depending on the land for their business, but they never had the influence they wanted. Jonzo, driven by dreams of wealth and power, saw Kondo as the answer to all his wishes. Why wait for nature to grow slowly when we can take what we want right now, he argued, rallying the younger villagers. With Kondo's plan, we can be rich, powerful, and untouchable. We deserve more than this small life. We deserve what is ours. Encouraged by Jonzo's fiery speeches, the Motsuo family started clearing land at a fast pace, draining rivers, and cutting down forests to build grand houses and shops full of luxury items. At first, the villagers admired the new homes that were being built, with their shining marble and gold windows. It seemed like Jonzo's dreams were coming true. But with every tree chopped down and every bit of earth dug up, something began to change. The land, once full of life, began to suffer. Crops began to fail. The rivers that had once flowed freely started to dry up, polluted by the mining and digging. The animals that had roamed the land fled to higher ground. But Jonzo, blinded by his desire for wealth, refused to see the warning signs. It's just a temporary setback, Jonzo insisted to the villagers. The land will recover. We'll find new ways to make it work. If we keep going, soon we'll have everything we've ever dreamed of. Meanwhile, the Kori family could see the effects of their opposition more clearly. As the land grew weaker, they struggled to grow their crops. Elder Nori knew that time was running out, and that their way of life was now threatened not just by Kondo's influence but by the people they had once called friends. The village, once peaceful, had turned into a battleground for resources. One day, after another harsh summer in which the crops had failed, Elder Nori called for a meeting in the village center. Her voice was tired but firm as she stood before the villagers, who were now divided into groups, each blaming the other for the village's problems. We have to stop this now, or there won't be anything left for anyone, Elder Nori pleaded. We must go back to the old ways, to the ways that respect the earth and each other. But Jonzo, with his new wealth and power, wasn't listening. The Kori family's warnings went unheard as the Motsuo family kept expanding. The land groaned under the weight of their ambition, and Kondo's promises continued to attract those who still believed in them. The change came quickly, as nature began to take its revenge. First, the rivers, once the lifeblood of Korra, stopped flowing. The Motsuo family's grand estates, built on land that had been drained of its resources, soon started to fall apart. With no crops to harvest and no animals to hunt, the grand homes they had built became empty and abandoned. What had once been busy markets and trade routes became silent, deserted streets. Jonzo, who had once been the most optimistic of all, now found himself surrounded by failure. His once proud business empire collapsed. The goods he had brought from other villages were no longer needed because there was no longer a village to support them. The people who had once bought from him now had nothing to give in return. The Motsuo family was forced to sell their land, but even that couldn't guarantee survival. The gold they had mined was now useless, as it couldn't buy food or water. The villagers who had followed Jonzo now found themselves hungry and without resources, unable to take care of themselves. On the other hand, the Kori family's fields, though damaged, still managed to produce a small amount of crops. But even the Kori family was not safe from the damage. They had tried to protect the land, but the damage was too great. Elder Nori, tired from trying to heal the village's rift, saw that the consequences of the villagers' actions were now unavoidable. Nothing would ever be the same again. As the months went by, the once thriving village of Korra was now only a shadow of its former self. The Kuri family, though still holding on to their values of respect for the earth, could not escape the damage caused by the Motsuo family's greed. The land was no longer able to support even the most careful farming. Then, an early winter came. The villagers, weak from hunger and lack of resources, struggled to survive. The Kuri family tried to share their small amount of food with those who were suffering, but the divide between the families was too deep. The Motsuo family, once so proud and powerful, now found themselves in disarray, with no community left to help them. In the end, it was the sense of unity and responsibility to each other that had once made Korra strong that was now its greatest loss. The Motsuo family, led by Jonzo, lost everything they had gained. The Kuri family, although still surviving, now faced the harsh truth: the land could not heal quickly enough for them to return to their old ways. And without a healthy community, there was no real wealth to be found. Jonzo's dream of power and wealth had collapsed, and the Motsuo family's legacy was reduced to a warning for others, showing that the earth cannot be exploited without consequences. And as for Kondo, the man who had come to Korra with promises of wealth, he vanished just as mysteriously as he had arrived, leaving behind only the wreckage of the village and the bitter lessons learned too late. The villagers who remained now faced the long, difficult task of rebuilding, not just the land, but the community that had been torn apart by greed. They learned the hard way that seeking power without respect for the land, the people, and the balance of life can only lead to disaster. The rise and fall of the Kuri and Motsuo families was a reminder that, in the end, it is not wealth that matters most, but the relationships we build and the respect we show to the earth. That is where true wealth lies.